About 4 years ago, for my daughter's 19th birthday, I gave her a Discovery flight as a birthday present. That's where you as a parent get to ride in the back seat while your child handles the controls of an airplane. I did it for my son when he was 12 too. I suggest you wait till they get a little bit older, because they will try to do video game maneuvers in that plane and you'll be all over the back windows and it's a bad scene. But my daughter very much enjoyed flying about and decided she wanted to do that for a living. So I got on the internet and I found all the grants necessary to get her pilot's license, and I brought her the stack of papers and I said, here you go. There's all the grants necessary for you to get a multi-engine certification pilot's license. I said, by summer you will be, a commercial pilot. And she kind of upended all those plans when she said, Daddy, by summer you will be a grandpa. Well, and of course I was. Fast forward a year and I find myself babysitting said grandchild. She had been sick for weeks, and what the pediatrician said was or the regular general practitioner that she went to, they said it was cold, and he continued to say that it was a cold 6 weeks later, and it was of course the same cold. They had taken her to the doctors. Nobody could figure out what it was. She went to a cardiologist. They said there's nothing wrong with her heart. Nobody bothered to test the blood. So I find myself babysitting. I'm lying in a crib, or I'm lying next to the crib, and this poor child, just 6 months old, has already been sick for 2 months, and she's breathing extremely laboriously. It's like listening to every breath is going to be the last breath, and it was very disturbing to hear. And I remember telling my daughter when she came home to pick up the baby, I said, we've got to get her to a hospital because she's, and I was told, we have an appointment on Friday, and I said, honey, she's not going to live until Friday. And we got her here, and they identified right away what it was: acute myeloid leukemia. They had her in ICU for a few days. They brought her back from the brink. She was in the act of dying when we brought her in. They said if she'd gone, that the body shuts down everything in order to preserve the brain, and that the oxygen level had gotten so bad, and I don't remember what the numbers were, but they were scary if they mean anything. If you understand what the numbers meant, then they were frightening to hear. But she barely avoided brain damage. And they put her on chemo, and of course she starts to show an improvement and she's recovering, and I found myself babysitting here on many an evening. And it's a remarkable thing to watch a child learn to take her first steps when she's plugged into so many hoses and wires and things, and she's got this tree full of vital fluids that you have to drag around as she begins to walk. Eventually, they get her down to where they can effectively say that the leukemia was cured. And we were ecstatic. However, cleaning up cancer is a bit like cleaning up Kool-Aid. I mean, the first bits are easy to get off, but it's that last bit that's virtually impossible, and if you don't get the last bit, it still matters, it's still there. And she seemed fine for several months and grew her hair out again, and then developed a tumor on her hip that prevented her from being able to walk, and we discovered, of course, that means that she's back in here. A return trip, a relapse. Your first time, I think the chances of survival are like 60%, which is fairly good. I mean, it's better than half-half. But your second time in, it's more like a quarter of a chance that you have to survive. And she went through the chemo sessions again, and I spent many more evenings here again. And I have to tell you that the staff at this facility are amazing. I envy these people their jobs. I mean, not only do they have a professional career where they have a title and a decent income, but the way that they have to affect other people's lives is amazing. And the people who work here definitely enjoy their jobs. Well, my granddaughter was this time in for a bone marrow transplant. And we had seen other cases where that didn't work out so well. I mean, she had a 6 out of 10 match and seemed to come through that without any complications whatsoever. A child in an adjoining room had a 9 out of 10 match, and he didn't fare so well, but he, came through as well, despite a lot of side effects and everything. And I remember feeling how lucky we were to come out of there, because there was another child in another room who was celebrating his 5th birthday shortly after the news that he would not have a 6th. So we felt very good about everything, and we're back out, and ideally with a bone marrow transplant, it means that the cancer can't come back. That's what we thought. And of course, you have a natural immunity that's supposed to be able to fight back traces of even cancers. But then, because she had lived for 2 years in this facility, seriously, living here, day and night, for months on end. My daughter, too, living here, day and night. Because there's nowhere else to be. You have to have 24-hour care, and so this is where they are. After this extended period and all the medications that were associated with that, there's a condition, Stevens-Johnson syndrome is what I think it's called. It's horrific. Imagine being burned on the inside and outside of your body and all over body-wide blisters. This is the worst effects of it. And she started to acquire that due to all the medications that she's had to have her entire life, and it just seems that that's what causes it, is prolonged exposure to these type medications. And this dramatically depleted her immune system. It's potentially lethal, and got her back here, and they arrested that, reversed it, and we were again very thankful. However, there were complications, and it seems that with her immune system being as depleted as it was, or maybe it wouldn't have made any difference, but she was on a second relapse. And again, I have to give the hospital credit. I mean, this is a very highly recommended facility, one of the best in the country. And now, because my granddaughter was over 3 years old and had been battling this her entire life, they now combine chemo with radiation. And it had become more desperate, so they tried a very vile concoction of chemo and radiation, and it didn't seem to matter for the first time ever, no matter how potent the chemo cocktail was. Even with conjunction with radiation, her biopsies always showed more cancer after the chemo session than before. So I mean, it wasn't even slowing it down anymore. Somebody invited someone that my daughter said there was some famous singer guy. She didn't know who it was. Somebody with a very silly name like Sting came by to visit, and I'm not exactly sure why. I just thought that was an interesting thing to throw into the story. I don't know what his purpose was. Just to visit the children's hospital and say hey to my granddaughter. The doctors ended up telling my daughter that the best that she could do was to keep her comfortable as long as possible. They conferred with St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which has to be the best facility of its kind in the country, #1, and they unfortunately couldn't come up with anything either. We had been referred to a number of crackpot remedies and people like the Brzezinski Clinic and all of that, and we'd all researched those as heavily as we felt necessary. By the way, thank you, PZ, for posting your article when you did. I want to thank the people at this facility. My granddaughter learned to talk here. She learned to be a person in this building. She's lived almost her entire life right here. My daughter was allowed to live in the room that whole time, as I say, months on end, which of course creates a bit of a problem when you always have to have somebody there from the family with the child all the time. So I'm afraid my kid does not have gainful employment at this point. But a number of volunteers and charity organizations have come forward and have been really spectacular toward the end. The Make-A-Wish Foundation was wonderful. My daughter went to Kissimmee, Florida. They had the 3-day pass to Disney World, the 2-day pass to Universal Studios, another day at SeaWorld, and so on. They had they stayed at Give the Children the World Village in Kissimmee, and she said everything was wonderful. Everything was taken care of. They had thought of and provided for everything, and that hearing her explain how wonderful everything was there in Florida was the first time I think I really choked up about it. It was great to hear that so many people were doing so much. They gave my granddaughter a transfusion as kind of a recharge, get her energy back up so that she could make the trip. But it turned out that this cancer, which is supposed to be an adult cancer, children aren't supposed to get it, yet there's a handful of them here who do. It's extremely progressive, and she got one good day in Florida, one good day at Disney World, where she got to meet the princesses that she loves so much. And for most of the rest of her trip, she slept. And when she got home, she wasn't responsive anymore. And it became a matter of waiting until I finally got the call that we didn't have to wait anymore. When the hospital told them there was nothing more they could do, that obviously meant they couldn't live here anymore. And having that she didn't really live anywhere else for the last 3 years, most of them, she didn't have any place she could turn to immediately. She didn't have a job sufficient to get an apartment and meet the criteria that everybody wanted and all of that. And can you imagine being at a job full-time during the last weeks of your child's life? I mean, so I turned to the Fellowship of Freethought, and they accessed their expanded network to got to the Dallas-Fort Worth Coalition of Reason, and someone there had a 2-bedroom condo that they just let my daughter have until summer, rent-free. Outstanding. Outstanding. And then, of course, the Make-A-Wish Foundation did an expedited order so that they could all go to Kissimmee and Give the Children the World Village, taking care of everything there, and all their pictures were taken care of, and all their video, and there were so many people that came forward that were so helpful toward the end. When it became time to get a casket, the casket shop, literally called that, sympathized with my daughter's situation, surprisingly, and gave her for free the urn for the ashes. And someone else had volunteered or offered for free a vault, which I guess is equivalent to a mausoleum, and we thank you for that too. Had we taken that, that would have been great. Thank you. And there were just a lot of people that were enormously helpful. Charities and volunteers not associated with charities. This hospital, for example, is a charity-driven institution. Runs entirely on donations. Because the American healthcare system can't do it, right? Not for people like my daughter. And I don't have a positive note to close this on. I just want people to know that their donations go for something when you do donate to organizations like these and the Make-A-Wish Foundation and so on. And they also do cancer research at this facility. So consider that as well. Thank you. Oh, exactly. Yes. From Persian religion, from Zoroastrianism, elements seem to be from Hinduism, and then there's portions that appear to have been Egyptian in origin. But the Mesopotamian religions are almost a conglomerate in modern Judaism.